Now, many of you didn't know this man 3 years ago. In fact, the first that most of us heard of him was during the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. If you go back to Hurricane Katrina, the United States government decided, and by the way, the government is nothing more than a group of men who carry out the wishes of the corporate gangster bankers. Let's be clear. Okay? That's it. The people in Washington, D.C. do nothing but carry out the orders of the international corporate conglomerate. The government is not run by votes, it's run by bucks. Very important that you understand that. But anyway, in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina 2005, former President Clinton and current president at the time, Bush, were on their way down to shake hands with the victims of Hurricane Katrina. Not to do anything about it, just to shake hands. But anyway, President Obama, who was then Junior State Senator Obama, was over in Russia on some foreign relations business on behalf of the Council on Foreign Relations, the board of which his wife sits on. Now, by the way, CFR was started to rip Africa off of its resources, by the way. In fact, the CFR goes back to the 1920s. And believe it or not, its creation was actually spurred by the work of the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, who had organized black people all across the world. Okay? So that's where the CFR comes from. So if you belong to the CFR, whether you are Michelle Obama or Jesse Jackson, who's also a member, you are there to help the white power structure rape off poor black nations. Or should I say, disorganized nations, because there's really no such thing as a black nation, because what is in the soil of Africa and most other so-called third world nations makes the world go around today. If you shut down Africa's borders, white supremacy would fall overnight. So understand that we are at the center of everything that goes on in this world, whether we are in control of it or not. But anyway, they told Clinton and Bush that you got to wait till Obama comes back before you go down and shake hands with the victims. So let me ask you a question. If he wasn't chosen to be the next president of the United States, what the hell was he doing with two current presidents? They chose him before you knew him. So you got a bad habit of celebrating when there ain't nothing to celebrate about. Now, when Obama first ran for state senator of Illinois, he ran against Bobby Rush, former Black Panther from that section of the city, of that state, Chicago, Bobby Rush. Bobby Rush blew him out the water. Obama comes back again and runs again, only this time he got the backing of the National Democratic Party for a state race, which is something you tend not to see. Not only that, once he wins, he is invited to be the keynote speaker at the 2004 Democratic National Convention. Okay, you know what that is like? If I'm not mistaken, isn't Shirley Kitchen a state senator? Could you imagine her being invited by the Democratic National Convention to be their keynote speaker? Well, that's what they did with Barack Obama. Why would they take a nobody, per se, and make him the keynote speaker of something that large? Because they wanted to see the reaction of white America to him. And the reaction was phenomenal. It was astounding. And that's when they decided that we would make him what he was. But even more importantly, for you to understand, the man who created the Trilateral Commission on behalf of the Rockefeller family, a European by the name of Zbigniew Brzezinski, whose books we need to get in the bookstore, The Grand Chessboard, which is one of them, which basically gave the strategy plan for 9/11. He said whenever you want to control the people, you must create a serious terroristic incident. When people are afraid, they voluntarily give up their rights. Just like you do in your neighborhood because you're scared of the drug dealers, but you ain't once asked the government why they can't stop the drugs from coming in the country. But then after all, we know that the drug industry is $500 billion a year, and if you stop the drug industry, Wall Street will plummet. If you stop the drug industry, most of you who are getting ready to retire would have no money to retire on because illegal drugs is used to supplement most major stocks on Wall Street. In fact, 2 weeks ago, BBC ran a story. The United States Marine Corps and Army was in Afghanistan 2 weeks ago, and they came into a large poppy field. And by the way, Afghanistan is the #1 poppy producing nation on the face of the earth. Opium and heroin, Afghanistan. Now you know why they're there. Ain't got nothing to do with freedom and democracy. We ain't even free and democratic here. Okay? So anyway, they reported in the newspaper that the Marine Corps and the Army were forbidden by President Obama to burn up the poppy seed. So you mean to tell me you're in here fighting the enemy government who can sell this drug crop for millions of dollars to finance their war and you don't destroy it? That's because you're not in there to destroy them. You're there to oversee your drug operation. It's a book you need to read called Dark Alliance by a European reporter by the name of Gary Webb, W-E-B-B. He's the one who was murdered after he published his book because he had uncovered, okay, that the United States government, okay, was trading guns for drugs and giving Central and South American gangs free access to black neighborhoods, helping them establish networks so they could sell their dope. Drugs is a form of chemical warfare in the black community. Don't look at it as nothing else. You can't stop it because you don't control it. Okay? So to beat up on young brothers who are out there selling it, even though it is wrong by what they're doing, but at the same time, we are wrong because if we had a job for our young people, they wouldn't be selling the drugs. See, they're out there selling because there's no economic system for black men. There's 5 stages of life for black men in America in case you ain't been paying attention. There is miseducation, there is medication, there is incarceration, there's frustration, and then there's extermination. That's it. And every black man in here, every black man who's not in here has the job of doing what? Trying to sidestep those 5 steps, but they're extremely powerful. And the reason why they're so powerful is the minute you send your child to school and he can't sit still for 5 minutes, they want some Ritalin. They want some Cyclic. They want some Prozac. They want some Adderall. They want some Paxil. And they're giving you this, and you're giving it to your babies because somebody told you that a simple little family problem that can be solved with discipline is now a psychiatric issue with a brain-based neurological cause. But when they diagnose your child with the disorder, nobody ran a CAT scan or an MRI. It's about pimping because they make $32 billion a year off these black children who are being given these drugs. $32 billion a year. And nobody's even telling you about the side effects. Nobody's telling you that the drug messes with your son's ability to produce healthy semen in his testicles. Did anybody tell you that? And that's coming straight from the Food and Drug Administration. But wait a minute, you can't rely on the Food and Drug Administration to approve your medicine. Why? Because most of the high-ranking staff in the FDA have stock invested in the drug companies, most of which publicly trade on Wall Street. So the reason why your son is pumping dangerous drugs in his body is because somebody's stocks need to go up. So you got to look at the situation for what it is, black people. You got to turn off the TV and start reading a little bit more. And you got to make sure you grab those children and pull them tight and close to you, because right now with what the homosexual movement is doing, it's off the hook. I was at historically black college not too long ago, and I saw 2 cross-dressed brothers walk into the room where I was. Thoroughly cross-dressed, blouses, high heels, fishnet stockings at a historically black college and university. In fact, it's going on at most of the historically black colleges and universities. The homosexual movement has taken over the civil rights movement. But believe it or not, the homosexual movement and the civil rights movement have a little relationship. When we go back to Dr. King and the civil rights movement, we find that his top advisor at the time was an openly professed homosexual male by the name of Bayard Rustin. Y'all know who I'm talking about. In fact, Dr. King was forced to start working with Bayard Rustin because everybody else in the civil rights movement said that this don't look right, because back then, black people stood for a little bit more. So a black minister had no problem standing up saying that I'm not for homosexuality. You'd be hard-pressed to find one today. And the reason why you'd be hard-pressed to find one today is because George Bush, the last president, came up with a bright idea. He said if the black church is the backbone of the black community, if we start giving them money, can we soften their position? And somebody said, yes, Master. So he found a way to get past the constitutional provision of a separation of church and state. And so now you got black churches all across America, including in the city, who get money directly from Washington. They are the new FBI, faith-based initiative. Very important that you watch this. In fact, I know for a fact that the FBI in every major city, you should know this, has 2 lists. They have a list of radicals. I'm probably on there. Some of you are on there, okay? Then they got another list. These are resources. These are the leaders who they can go to and find out exactly what's going on here tonight. These are the people who they can go to and ask to keep a tab on him. What is he up to? What is he doing? And you know most of those lists are comprised of ministers. That's right, religious leaders. See, when somebody told you that we just deal with God, we don't deal with nothing else, that was a political decision, because there is nothing more political in this world than how you form your concept of the all-powerful creator. In fact, the white Jesus concept, okay, is a phenomenon that you only find in the black community, in that we are the only race of people who will voluntarily worship our creator in an image of somebody else's creation. You can't find it. You go to the Orient, Jesus looks like them. You go to the Middle East, Jesus looks like them. You go to white countries, Jesus look like them. But when you go to certain Roman Catholic cathedrals, Jesus look like us. Like if you go to the Vatican, if you go to the Catholic Cathedral in Poland, in Spain, in Ireland, most of them have black Madonnas and Child to this day in the main cathedral. But the reason why there's a white image of a white Jesus in your church is because the mind works by symbols. And if I make your God look like me, then naturally your unconscious mind will associate me and George Bush and every other white man who's come across as being God Almighty. So when you think you're on your knees praying to God, you're really worshiping the white man, and you wonder why your prayers don't get answered. Making African children inferior begins with birth. I say it all the time. So when your child come home, what do you turn on the TV? White racist cartoons. Everybody remember the Tasmanian devil? The little ugly fat thing that just kept spinning around? Do you know why that cartoon was created? Because at the time, the British was in Australia, okay? And there's an island off the coast of Australia, Tasmania. They exterminated every living black man, woman, and child on the island of Tasmania, so they gave you the Tasmanian devil.